What's up, everyone? We're back with another fantasy football video. Week 6 takeaways. Going to go through every team that played Thursday through Sunday and go through the key takeaways of what I would look for as a fantasy football owner based on these teams' performances. Getting to that stretch of the season where we have to make some tough decisions about players, commit to certain players or not. So I'm going to walk through some of that in this video and go more in depth in my strategy video coming out tomorrow morning. So please check that out if you're interested. I make a wide variety of other content too in this channel, fantasy football as well as some other stuff too, so check it out. We will start with a Thursday night game and try to get through this in about 15 minutes total. I always time myself and I always go a little bit over, but I'll try to hit it this time. Tampa Bay and Philadelphia. So my takeaway is that for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Antonio Brown looking like the most reliable Tampa Bay wide receiver. So AB did have some. He doesn't stand out as one of the top point performers, but he also missed some time because of COVID. But by and large, he has been the most reliable of Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, etc. when he's fully healthy and able to go because of that connection that he has with Tom Brady. And he showed in this game, I believe he had 9 receptions, 93 yards and a touchdown, 13 targets, leading the team. He's standing out among this receiving core. Could be a good time to potentially try to flip him, but he is the most reliable of these receiving options on the Buccaneers. Philadelphia. So I am very concerned about this team's offensive outlook for future games. We've already talked Miles Sanders and my concern with him, but in this game in particular, the only receiver that really stood out, or pass-catching option that really stood out at all, was Zach Ertz. And he's now no longer on this team. So what is Philadelphia going to do moving forward? Devonta Smith has had many up and down games. Outside of him, they really do not have anything reliable at the wide receiver position. Dallas Goedert is there, but has not particularly been very effective for the most part. So I'm very concerned about this overall team's fantasy outlook moving forward. Miami and Jacksonville. So Jalen Waddle has had some great games this season, but it's all dependent on Tua. So my takeaway is that the Waddle-Tua connection, hopefully you bought low on him because I think he is going to be a season-winning player potentially as the season goes along. So really like the combination of Jalen Waddle and Tua as wide receiver quarterback duo moving forward. And then big concern with Gaskin. I'm going to go more into Gaskin in my strategy video, but I think you really have to try to evaluate your options to get another running back. Jacksonville, my takeaway, this is a great time to buy low on Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has shown steady improvement throughout the season. This was the first game this season where he did not throw an interception. He also throwing for 319 yards. Needs to work on his efficiency and completion percentage, as well as the turnovers. So he is a work in progress, but this is the game that we've kind of started to see some turning for him. And coming off a bye next week, people might be impatient with Trevor Lawrence and may either drop him or not really have the need for him on a bye. So see if you can buy low on Trevor Lawrence because I think he could be a very valuable quarterback as the season progresses. Los Angeles Chargers and Baltimore. My takeaway with the Chargers is don't panic with the players on this team. We got a bye next week. Could be a lot of people maybe get panicking about what to do with Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen especially. But I would hold on all these guys. I would not make any big decisions off of this game. I think this game was a fluke where they were looking ahead to the bye. Young team coming off a very good win last week. So I think be patient with this team. I think that this game was not a full picture for them. For the Baltimore Ravens, avoid their running backs. So they have had a whole slew of running backs that look like they're going to be taking the lead back role. We thought it was going to be Tyson Williams for quite a while, but he's kind of fallen out of the rotation entirely. He's now no longer even active. Then you have Latavius Murray, who kind of stepped up, but Latavius Murray just went down with an injury, so we don't know what his role is going to be moving forward, so they split it up between 3 aging running backs. So I would just avoid the whole thing altogether. Try to see what value you can get in potentially flipping them. Kansas City and Washington. So Darrell Williams I really was impressed with how he handled the vast majority of the workload of this backfield. And he is a great every down back moving forward that you can lock in until Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back. So 28 total carries, and 24 of them were to the running back position, and Darrell Williams had 21 of them. So we thought Jerick McKinnon could have a role in which he could split this into a timeshare, but that was not the case at all, especially in a game where they were up on Washington towards the end and needed to run the ball quite a bit. It's very encouraging to see Darrell Williams getting the vast majority of that workload. So really like Darrell Williams as an option as long as Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out. Washington, my takeaway is that you have to try to find ways to sell Antonio Gibson. As I talked about already, Gibson has not got the best of game scripts over the next few weeks because Washington is in a position where they're heavy underdogs and likely passing the ball quite a bit. But on top of that, Gibson is also dealing with a shin injury that, depending on how bad the football team season goes, I apologize if I called them the Redskins earlier. I'm a fan of them. Sometimes I make that mistake. But the key takeaway is that they might shut them down if they're not competitive by the end of the stretch, where they're looking at potentially a 2-7 record. So try to see what you can get to just sell Antonio Gibson. He has a good game 2 weeks ago. That's my takeaway with them. Minnesota and Carolina. So a lot of buy considerations with this Minnesota team. So I'm going to do a buy, sell, drop for this team. I would buy Justin Jefferson off the buy. He was heavily targeted in this game, but only had 8 receptions for about 84 yards. Not the most ideal for him considering he didn't have a touchdown, but this is a guy you want to try to buy low on coming out of this bye. It was 8 for 80, by the way. Somebody to sell high on the buy is KJ Osborne. Osborne has been up and down. His performance is not particularly reliable, but on a 6 reception, 78-yard touchdown game, I think you got to see what you can do to flip him coming off the bye. And then somebody to drop at the bye, controversial take, but Tyler Conklin. Only 3 targets in this game. He did have 71 yards, which is impressive, but at the same time, he's also had quite a few dud games this season, and I don't think it's worth rostering him through the bye. Carolina. So my takeaway is that you want to try to buy these Panthers offensive players, especially Sam Darnold and DJ Moore. The next 2 weeks, they've got the Giants and Atlanta. Later this season, they have Arizona, Washington, and Miami, all before their Week 13 bye. So these are all great matchups for this team to turn around, especially DJ Moore and Sam Darnold. I would try to buy low on these players. Green Bay and Chicago. You can drop Randall Cobb as my key takeaway, and also that Allen Lazard is a trap. Pretty much for the Packers, their only reliable pass catchers are Devontae Adams and the 2 running backs. I think that's pretty much it with this team. I would not go into the depths of trying to pick up a Randall Cobb or a Marquez Valdes-Scantling when he comes back. It's just best to avoid the whole thing altogether because you can't get any consistent prediction with these guys. For Chicago, consider buying low on Allen Robinson after this week. He is in a position where, and also Darnell Mooney, good waiver pickup potentially. These are both guys that have been highly inconsistent all season. Mooney has been the only one that actually put up a good game, but they play Tampa Bay next week. This team is in a position where they might struggle running the ball. If these guys are ever going to turn their value around, it's this next week against Tampa Bay. If that does not happen, well, then you might have to look to part with them, but we'll get to that bridge when we cross it. Cincinnati and Detroit. Buy T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. This was a very heavily game-scripted game for the Bengals where they did not need to pass the ball as often, and these players had weaker outcomes. But especially T. Higgins is still heavily involved in this offense, and when the Bengals are playing tougher competition later this season as they're expected to face, they will need to pass more, and Higgins and Boyd will get more involved. For Detroit, consider buying low on DeAndre Swift for the playoffs. So DeAndre Swift, a lot of people might be down on him because he's been productive on this team, but he's not putting up breakout numbers, and a lot of that is because the offense is quite limited. But they do have a favorable matchup from week 15 to 17 in the playoffs. So if you're in a position where you can stash him and you don't necessarily need to rely on him every week, he's a great buy low candidate to consider because in week 15 to 17, when the playoffs are primarily going to be in their stride. He's got Arizona, Atlanta, and Seattle, which are all defenses that are definitely beatable against the pass. Or excuse me, in the running game. And the pass game too, because PPR back. Houston and Indianapolis. So Nico Collins is a great sneaky pickup for Houston moving forward. In this game, he was 4 for 44 on 6 targets. This offense is dominated by Brandon Cooks among the receivers, but if you can get another player, if you were going to target another player, I would look to Nico Collins. I've talked about him in the preseason as well as earlier this season as well. I think he's a great buy low guy, especially when Tyrod Taylor gets back. Indianapolis. So this offense is this game was very much scripted towards the run, but what is Michael Pittman's outlook for the foreseeable future? He's really only put up 2 good games out of 6 so far this season, and the rest of them have been relatively poor games. The game that T.Y. Hilton comes back, and T.Y. Hilton was a guy that I was very skeptical about coming off a neck injury. He's also on the back half of his career, kind of getting more towards closer to retirement than to his prime, in my opinion. But Pittman was beat out by him in this game. So what is this going to look like moving forward? The offense seems to be more efficient running the ball like they did against Houston, really getting Jonathan Taylor involved. So Michael Pittman you're really going to have to make some tough decisions on him and potentially consider selling him depending on your team record. I'll talk about him tomorrow. Rams and the Giants. So I would not give up on Robert Woods just yet. Like Pittman, he's had quite a few bad games this season, and Sunday was another one of those. But he does lead the team in this past game in snaps and route run. The thing is, they didn't need to throw it because they were destroying the Giants. So with how explosive this offense is, I would not give up on Robert Woods. I would maybe adjust your expectations, but I would not just panic and sell him at this point, personally speaking. Somebody I would definitely panic on and just honestly just erase from my memory altogether is Evan Ingram for the Giants. This guy has been the definition of a tight end that we all have hopes for because of his athletic potential. But in a game where they have their top 3 receivers injured, and then their number 4 receiver gets injured in this game as well. So now you're down to the last guys that you have. Evan Ingram only has 3 receptions for 24 yards. Dante Pettis significantly outperformed him in this game. So if Evan Ingram cannot get it done with the lack of receivers that he has on this team now, then this guy is not a tight end I am really ever going to look for. I am totally done with Evan Ingram. You can cut him. Not reliable at all. Arizona and Cleveland. Sell A.J. Green off a game where he got a touchdown, had 5 receptions, and I believe about 70 yards. I have to double check that exactly. But this is a great opportunity to sell him because next week they're playing Houston, and much like Indianapolis, they're going to be running the ball. So it's a good time to potentially buy on these running backs, but especially to try to flip somebody like A.J. Green, who I think that has put up some good games so far this season, but this is a good opportunity to try to flip him away. He had 5 for 79, by the way. For Cleveland, the number 1 waiver wire pickup this week is Dearness Johnson. He did not have a good game in this one. A lot of that is because Cleveland was just getting pummeled the whole time and had to throw. But in a game where Kareem Hunt is expected to be out for quite a while, we don't know what Nick Chubb's injury outlook is. Thursday night, it's a quick week turnaround. They're going to rely on Dearness Johnson, and especially if Baker Mayfield is hurt too. Expect more pounding the ball, running it in. Going to talk more about Johnson tomorrow. Las Vegas and Denver. This is a great opportunity to try to flip Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake put up a good game, and people may be trying to convince you to buy him, but he only had 4 rushes and 2 receptions. So, and this is in a game where they were up the majority of the time on Denver. I just don't like Kenyon Drake's involvement. It's frankly a miracle that he managed to get 2 touchdowns out of 6 touches the whole game. So this is a great opportunity to try to flip him if you still have him rostered. Denver. Another guy I would try to maybe flip depending on your record is Javonte Williams. I will talk more about this tomorrow, but he's I'm very concerned about the timeshare if he's going to get involved. This is very much a future projection for later in the season, and you might not be patient enough to do that. 2 games left, Dallas and New England. So Dallas, my takeaway is that monitor this Dak Prescott injury. They've got a bye next week, so I would not make any panic moves on this team. They've got a lot of great offensive options, but if Dak Prescott looks like his calf strain is going to be a significant issue, then you might want to consider flipping some of these guys. But do not do anything now, just monitor. New England. So Ramondre Stevenson. We thought Brandon Bolden was going to get involved in the passing game more, but Brandon Bolden was very ineffective. He only had 1 reception and 1 rush, both for single-digit yards. One of them was negative single-digit yards. But Ramondre Stevenson stepped up as a receiving option. He led the Patriots in receptions at the running back position, and Damian Harris has been dealing with injuries. So Ramondre Stevenson, highly effective in the preseason. Very good stash if you need somebody to take a flyer on. And then last game, we're going to talk about Seattle. This might be a good time to try to sell Alex Collins. He had a great game in this one, but Rashad Penny coming off of IR, what is Seattle going to do with him? Because he's the guy that they ideally want to try to get involved, even though he's had a highly disappointing NFL career so far, but first-round pick. If he comes back to full strength and plays in Week 7, they might limit Alex Collins' touches, so consider that. And then for Pittsburgh, buy Chase Claypool. Going into a bye next week, people might be panicking about this game that he had here against Seattle, which he really put up a dud. But he's got some great matchups from Week 8 through 12 where they could be throwing it quite a bit. So I would look to pick up Chase Claypool. Could be good value for you. That's all I got for this video. Stay tuned for my Week 7 strategy video that's coming out tomorrow morning, and I will go in depth on sell high, buy low, waivers, and drop candidates going into a tough Week 7 bye week where 6 teams are on bye. So check that out if you're interested. And thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.